Start on your stomachs, with your arms by your side resting on one cheek, or you can have your head resting on your forearms, chin to the mat, whichever way is comfortable for you. Constrict the back of your throat, activating Ujjayi breathing. Making your breath sound like the ocean. Make the length of your inhales match the length of your exhales. The theme for today's class is the core. So we'll be working on our abs and our obliques. And of course, your core is more than that. It also includes your chest, your back, your thighs, your glutes. Just about everything that's not an extremity can be considered the core. Go ahead and set an intention for today's class. And now bring your left heel towards your seat. And with your left hand, reach back and bring your heel closer to your seat, stretching out your left quad. Your right hand can be flat on the mat. Neck is flat, so gaze is down. If that's uncomfortable, you can prop up slightly onto a forearm. And you want to be twisting your tailbone back and down, which helps get a little more of a stretch out of that left quad. You can lower that left leg back down to the mat and reach behind with your right leg as your right heel meets your seat and you're stretching out the quad on the other leg. Twisting your tailbone back and down, getting more out of that stretch. Lower your right leg back down to the mat. And come onto your forearms with your palms flat on the mat in front of you. Shoulders away from the ears, gazes forward, Sphinx pose. From here, you're going to tuck your toes and raise your middle up to the sky, and then walk your toes towards the front of your body, dolphin pose. So you're raising up out of the shoulders, away from your ears. In your seat, and your legs are similar to downward dog, so your heels are fighting towards the ground behind you, stretching the hamstrings, working on the shoulder strength here. Slowly lower your knees to the mat coming out of the pose. Come onto your hands so we're in a tabletop position. And we're going to take some cat-cows. So to go into cow, gaze forward, drop your belly, raise your hips back behind you. And then exhale into cat, raising your back up to the sky. Inhaling, back to cow. Exhaling to cat, rinsing out our spine here. Take a few more of these movements to your own breath. Come to a neutral position in table. Kick your legs back behind you, plank pose. If this pose is ever too much for you, you can bring your knees down. Otherwise, wrists are underneath shoulders, and there's a straight line from your shoulders to your heels, so your hips aren't too high up or too low. You're fighting your heels back behind you, and you're twisting your tailbone back and down towards your heels, which helps activate your core. Bring your knees to the wide edges of the mat and lower your seats down towards your heels, child's pose. For a bit more activity, you can straighten your arms and push against your palms so that your seats come closer to your heels. Or you can release your elbows to the mat and let it all go. Push back up into a tabletop position. Kick your legs back into plank, and then take your left hand more towards the center of the mat and roll over onto the edge of your left foot, side plank. Right arm up to the sky. If this is too much, you can kick that top foot back behind you to add another point of contact. For a bit more of a challenge here, raise your top leg. Come back to side plank, and then lower back down to regular plank. Then bring your knees wide to the edge of the mat, sink back into child's pose. Raise back up to table. Kick your legs back to plank. Bring your right arm to the middle of the mat and then roll over onto the edge of your right foot, left arm to the sky, side plank on the other side. Go into the variation you need. Maybe it's a slight break here. Maybe you're not quite ready for the classic side plank or for the more challenging leg raise in side plank. That's fine. Come back to normal plank. Bring knees wide to the mat. Sink down into child's pose, resting. Come up into table, kick your legs back to plank, and then slowly lower down with elbows at your sides, chaturanga. Come onto your bellies. We're going to do some sun salutations and set up options for the back bend. So if you lift up off of your arms, but your elbows are still bent, gaze can be forward or up, shoulders are away from the ears, mini cobra. Lower back down. If you push against your arms, straighten your arms, straighten at the elbows. Again, gaze is forward or up, and your elbows are away from the ears, you're in full cobra. Come back down. Last option for the back bend is an upward facing dog. So if you lift up, your knees come off the mat, your chest is open, your shoulders are back, your gaze is up. You're in a more challenging back bend. So take the back bend option that's best for you based on your edge. And from wherever you are now, roll over your toes into downward facing dog. Take whatever movement you need in downward facing dog, maybe pedaling out the dog by bending one knee, stretching the calf of the other leg, and then switching sides, and then switching sides a bit faster, really pedaling out the dog. The most important thing in dog is to get your seat high up into the air. So if you need to bend your knees slightly to get more height, that's fine. The weight in your hands is mostly in your thumbs and first finger, the pointer finger. That helps activate the tricep. The eyes of your elbows are pointing towards each other. And if your legs are straight behind you, you're pushing your heels towards the ground to get a little bit more of a stretch out of your hamstrings. Breathing in dog. On an exhale, we're going to bring our feet to our hands. An inhale to a flat back. So there's a 90-degree bend at the hips. Shoulders are away from the ears, and our hands are on our knees or our shins, wherever they need to be to maintain a 90-degree bend. We then exhale down, palms to the mat in a forward fold. The most important thing in this fold is that our stomachs are on our thighs. Our palms are flat on the mat, so if you need to bend your knees, that's fine. If your knees are bent, you're pushing up with your hips to stretch your hamstrings. We're going to inhale with a flat back, arms all the way overhead. Gaze is up past our fingers to the sky. Shoulders are back and down. On an exhale, we bring our palms together and trace a line in front of our faces, palms stopping, prayer at heart center. A nice, strong variation of mountain pose. Our tailbones are twisting back and down, which activates our glutes and our core. Our shoulders are back and down away from the ears, chin is slightly tucked, and we're pushing our palms together. The front of our thighs, our quadriceps are activated. Inhale, arms up, and then exhale, swan dive forward with a flat back into a forward fold. Inhaling up to a halfway lift. And then with one exhale, we plant our hands, we step or hop back to a plank for just a second, and then lower down, chaturanga, elbows at our sides. We then inhale to our back bend of choice, and exhale over the toes to downward facing dog. On an exhale, bring your feet to your hands. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale them to prayer at heart's center. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale down with a flat back, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale down, plank, chaturanga. Inhale to your back bend. And exhale over your toes to a downward facing dog. Breathing here. On an inhale, your right leg comes up, toes pointing down, so we're not opening our hips. Even if that means your foot doesn't get too high up behind you, that's fine. On an exhale, bring that foot to meet your hands. And we're going to spin up, almost like in a warrior two. But what we're really doing is we're standing now, facing the long edge of our mat. Our feet are parallel, and once they're parallel, you're going to bring your toes a little in closer towards each other than your heels, and then with a flat back, bend forward, a wide leg, standing, forward fold. The goal is to get the belly onto the thighs while maintaining a nice, strong, flat back and a long spine. So if your hands can touch the ground, that's fine. If you're not quite getting your stomach to your thighs, bring your hands behind your calves and use your arm strength to help bend you forward more. Elbows can come out to the sides. Breathing here. Bring your hands to your hips, and with a flat back, activate your core and slowly come back up to a standing position. Come to standing at the top of your mat. Heel toe your feet so they're hips width distance apart. And then come up on your tippy toes and slowly lower down. Hands are prayer at heart center. Resting your seat on your heels while you're still up on your toes. From here, slowly lower down onto your seats, carefully. Get grounded on your sit bones, and we're going to come into boat pose. So legs come up. Your calves are parallel with the ground, feet are flexed. Your chest is back and it's open. Your arms are up, your neck is flat. Your arms are parallel with your thighs and your palms are facing each other. Activating your core here. If you're not shaking yet, straighten your legs and point your toes. We're going to do some boat pulses, so lower down towards the ground, but don't make contact, and then come back up. Slowly lower down towards the ground, and then come back up. Lower down towards the ground, pop back up into boat. Now come out of the pose, bringing your feet into contact with the mat. We're going to set up for bridge pose, so from here, slowly lower down to the mat. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we're on our backs with the knees in the air. The bottoms of our feet are on the mat. Feet are hips width distance apart. And bring your heels close to your seat so that you can brush them with your fingertips. When ready, breathe in And lift your hips up to the sky, bridge pose. Tuck your shoulders underneath you and make a fist underneath your seat, interlacing your fingers. That fist needs to come down towards the mat and away from you towards your heels. Neck is flat. Activate your quadriceps, the front of the thigh, to lift your hips up higher. Glutes are active here as well. Breathing here. Slowly come down one vertebrae at a time. And as a counter move, bring your knees to your chest, squeezing gently and rocking left to right. Bring your feet back down to the mat, setting up for another bridge. Or if wheel is in your practice, bring your hands by your ears, fingers facing the same direction as your toes, and lift up with your hips into either bridge or wheel. Start to come down out of the pose, back onto the mats. Bring your knees into your chest again, squeezing and rocking, being kind to our backs. From here, we're going to bring our hands behind our necks, protecting them, protecting the neck. Interlace your fingers, have your elbows out to the sides. We're going to set up for bicycle kicks. So as you kick your right leg out, your right elbow comes to your left knee, and then you alternate. So you bring your left elbow to the right as you bring your right knee in to meet your elbow, and you alternate. So go at your own speed, your own tempo here, and make sure that you're concentrating on your abdominal muscles, really feeling this exercise in your core. Take a rest by lowering your legs down to the mat. Arms can splay out at your sides. Palms can face up. Mini Shavasana. And we're going to get back at it again into those bicycle kicks. So when ready, start kicking. Or should I say start biking? I don't know. Kicking, twisting, feeling those abdominals work. The work near your elbows affecting your upper obliques, your upper abs, the work by your legs affecting the lower obliques and the lower abs. Come back down onto the mat, resting. Come to a seated pose on your mat. So you're on your seats. And we're going to come into half Lord of the Fishes pose. So left leg extends out straight, toes are flexed. Your right leg comes up over your left. And now you take your left leg and bring your heel towards your seat so that your knee is facing straight out in front of you. If both hips are making contact with the ground, with the mat, you can continue on. If you can't get both hips to connect to the mat, that's fine. Just re-straighten that left leg and keep that foot flexed. And then from here, inhale, your right arm back, making contact with the mat. And with a nice straight spine, inhale your left arm up, twist to the right, connect elbow to that knee, and twist to the right. So every inhale, your spine gets stronger and straighter and taller. And with every exhale, you're twisting more to the right from your belly button, gazing to your right and eventually back behind you. So it's a great back twist. With your legs the way they are, it's a nice hip opener as well. And if you're not in the half Lord of the Fishes pose because you don't have that leg flexibility yet, that's fine. Breathing here. Always breathing in yoga. The breath makes space. So come back to center and then do a counter twist to the other side, being kind to our backs. Untuck your legs, and we're going to switch sides. So first, the right leg is straight out in front of us. The left leg comes over the right. Our right leg, we bring the right heel towards our seat, and we make sure that we can have both hip bones on the ground. Our left arm come backs behind us, flat on the mat. We inhale our right arm up and twist to the left, connecting the right elbow to the knee. We inhale, straight spine. Exhale, twisting to the left, initiating the twist from our belly button. Feeling a nice opening in the other hip. Feeling the twist in the back. Breathing here. Come back to center. Counter twist to the right. Untuck your legs. Bring your heels to one side so that you can come onto your knees into a table position. Kick your feet back behind you. Plank. Get into the proper plank form. Get into the proper mindset. Your mind is in your abs. They are active here. Breathing in the plank. On an exhale, lower down, elbows at your side, chaturanga. Inhale up to your back bend. Exhale over those toes to a downward facing dog. On an exhale, bring your feet to your hands. Come up halfway. Lower down, forward fold. Arms up overhead. Prayer at heart center. Staying here in a modification of mountain pose, mountain with a prayer. We're going to bring our hands now behind our head, right at the nape of the neck. And we're going to do some standing bicycle kicks. So left knee comes up and we bend our right elbow towards our left knee. And you really want to feel this in the core, so don't bend from the back. Make sure you're feeling it in the lower abs and the upper abs and the obliques, which is the muscle that runs down the side of your stomachs. And then alternate and switch sides. So do these standing bicycle kicks. At your own pace. Breathing here, breathing through the exercise. Really visualize the muscles working here. And then take a break. Standing in mountain pose with palms facing forward. A nice active pose. So feet are hips width distance apart. Tailbone is back and down. Activating glute and core. Chin slightly tucked. Elbows are back and down. Getting grounded here. Breathing here. Inhale your arms up overhead. Bring them back behind your neck. Elbows are out to the sides and start bicycling again. Feeling those abs working hard here. Halting activity. Bringing hands back down, palms facing forward, mountain pose, catching our breath. Inhale, arms up, gaze is overhead, past our fingertips to the sky. Prayer at heart center. Heel toe your feet together so that your toes are touching, leaving some space by the ankles. And then arms come up and seat goes back behind us, chair pose, Utkatasana. So our tailbone is twisting back and down, so we have a nice long straight spine, and that hollows out the core. The weight is mostly in our heels, so you can lift all 10 toes. And the arms are up, but the shoulders are away from the ears, palms facing each other. Gaze is about 2 feet or 3 feet in front of your mat. Bend a little further down into your chair. And now come onto your toes and bring your arms forward, palms facing each other. Your arms are now parallel with the ground. Awkward chair. Lower your heels down to the ground and raise your arms up to the sky. Heel toe your feet back to hips width distance and swan dive forward with a flat back. Forward fold. Staying in a forward fold, we're going to set up for Warrior 3. So first, we're going to do a standing split. So right leg goes back behind us, toes facing the ground, really using the back of the leg muscle here, not using our hips. And your hands can come from the floor to your ankle or your shin, a block, and eventually you're going to raise it up back behind you, or prayer, or your arms are going to be forward, past your head, in front of you. Take whatever expression of Warrior 3 you need. Using your leg strength, using your core. Bring your hands down to the mat, come back to a forward fold. Feel a release in this pose, and catch your breath here. When ready, come on to the other side. So now left leg lifts back behind us and set up for Warrior 3. So hand can go to ankle, shin, and eventually back behind you in prayer or in front past your head. If you need to, you can bend into that standing knee just a little bit to get more height. And you can come out of the pose back into a forward fold, feeling a release from the pose. With an inhale and a flat back, arms come up overhead. Prayer at heart center. Arms back up overhead. Swan dive down. Forward fold. Step or hop back to a plank. Bring your knees down to the mat. Kick your heels off to the side and come onto your seats. And we're going to lower down to the mat onto our backs. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we're resting on our backs. Bring the bottoms of your feet up to the sky, grabbing the outer edges of your foot, happy baby. Knees are out to the sides. And as you rock left and right, you can bring your knees in towards your armpits, feeling a nice stretch, maybe even an opening in the hips. A gentle massage for your back as well. Bring your feet down to the mat. Knees are up. We're going to come into an inversion of your choosing. So the goal here is to get your legs up overhead for about a minute. So if you can't quite do an inversion, you can just bring your legs to a wall or a pole or a door, and while laying on your back, get your feet up in the air so that your legs are upside down. If you can do a handstand or a headstand, you can come into that pose. You can do a shoulder stand as well. And wherever you are, you can play a little. So with your legs up in the air, you can open your legs wide to the edges or the corners of the room, twisting them around, bringing one leg forward and one leg back, switching. This is a bit of playtime here, a playful leg inversion. If you're in shoulder stand, maybe you want to kick your legs back past your head into plow, or bring your knees by your ears. Wherever you are, slowly and carefully start to come back down onto the mat, one vertebrae at a time, or out of your headstand or handstand. We're just resting on our backs, breathing. We're going to make our way onto our stomachs. Resting on our stomachs, one cheek to the mat. Now bring your arms overhead and pop your arms and your legs up, digging your hips into the ground. Neck is flat so your gaze is directly down onto the mat, and you're tensing every muscle here to get as much height as you can out of your extremities. Breathing, tensing, lifting. Lower everything down to the mat. Arms can rest at your sides. You can rest on one cheek or your forehead. If you're resting on one cheek, switch sides to be kind to your neck. Bring your arms overhead again, coming back into the pose. So extremities are raised off the floor, every muscle engaged. Breathing. Bring it all down, resting again. If you're on one cheek, switch sides. Now bring your heels towards your seat. Try to keep your knees together here and kick your feet into your hands. You're lifting up into bow pose. Gaze is down so your neck is flat. Stretching out your shoulders, working your glutes and your quads. Really straining to kick out of your feet to get as much height as possible. Breathing deeply and come down out of the pose, resting on our stomachs. Letting our heart rates drop just a little bit. If you're on one cheek, switch sides. You're going to bring your forearms out in front of you. Elbows are directly underneath the shoulders. Retuck your back toes and lift up into a forearm plank. So hips are low here, and our tailbone is twisting back and down behind us to activate the core. Heels are fighting back behind us. Gaze is down at the mat so that our neck is flat. Mind is in our abs, really working the core. You can lower down onto your stomach. You can bring your hands underneath your stomach, so your stomach is resting on your hands. And you can bring one cheek to the mat. This is an optional positioning for the final resting pose. So you can stay here and switch cheeks every few minutes. Or you can come to your backs, resting in a traditional Shavasana pose. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. Robert Louis Stevenson. If you're resting on your stomachs, you can flip over onto your backs. Otherwise, introduce some movement into your physical bodies. Bring your arms overhead and stretch from fingertip to toes. Bring your knees to your chest, squeezing, gently rocking left to right. Roll over onto your right side in fetal position, resting your cheek on your bicep. With your eyes still closed, push off your left hand and come to a comfortable seated position on your mat. Straight spine, chin slightly tucked. Your hands can be palm up or down on your knees, or prayer at heart center. Thank yourself for coming to the mat today and being kind to your mind and your body. The light in me shines in the light in you. Namaste.